There we go. That mic on? Yes, it is. Good. Give me one moment just to make sure everything is working as usual. And then I'll explain why I look kind of ridiculous and what the plan is for today. Twitch says up and running. Good. I'm competing with the funky spud though right now, so I understand if nobody wants to tune in. Yeah, all right, we're good. We're good. Hello everybody, welcome back to another week of Future Group Friday. For those of you new to the stream, my name is Cheese Doodle. I am a member of the TagPro steering committee and development team, summarized as the Future Group, responsible for development updates, planning for the future kind of stuff, and making sure the game keeps growing and keeps getting better. For those of you who don't know what TagPro is, it's a free-to-play online capture the flag game, 4v4, right in your browser. You can play it on any modern browser these days. Find it at tagpro.gg if you want to check it out. But all we're going to be talking about today, our usual plan is to go through the development updates from the last week, talk about things that have been in progress behind the scenes, and then things that we're about to be doing in the near future. Then we'll switch gears to what's in front of me right now, our candy board, excuse me, talking about suggestions people have for the game, figuring out what to do with them if we think they're relevant, to add them in or tweak them a little bit. And then we will wrap up at the end with a feature building session. And I have a weird one this week, so we'll see how that goes. For those of you wondering why I am wearing sunglasses indoors, this is an attempt to bring back a costume that I wore a long time ago because I woke up today and realized that it's Halloween. So I've got my Camp Crystal Lake shirt on. It's one I wore back in college, and I figured the sunglasses brought it together better. I had a whistle at some point. I don't know where the whistle went. Kind of sad about that. And I am not wearing the jean shorts that I wore when this costume originally debuted. But that's the best I can do from a Halloween standpoint. I do also have a black cat watching over us right here. So good enough for me. I hope everyone's having a good Halloween so far. And let's get into the actual stuff you're here for. Let me put in the chat real quick a form link. Anybody who has questions for me about anything, feel free to submit that form. I always go through on stream and answer any questions. And apparently I have a scratchy throat, so that's great. But anyway, development updates. Today is the 31st, so we're going to go back 1 week from now. And let's talk through stuff that has happened. You might be aware of the fact that we have not released the latest changes to the site just yet. I keep promising that we're close, and we are close. We've had a bit of a holdup on one particular branch that has been ongoing for 3 months probably. It's been a very long time coming to get this thing done. We just found some issues with it on the back end that I'll talk through a little bit as I go here. But basically that one branch is what's holding up the release. I can say finally for the first time that we are done with each individual piece of the release. So there are no new things that need to be added to get this release out. We just need to put all the things that exist together. So there are about 5, maybe 6 open branches right now that need to be merged together, and then we're done, good to go. I'm really hoping that will happen next week. And while I'm on that topic, I should mention I will not also be here on Friday next week. I will be out of town on Friday. I will try to put together a recording for the like a breakdown of the release, assuming that it's going to go live before next Friday. But I will not be streaming next Friday for Future Group Friday. So anyway, back to development updates starting a week from today that way. We've got the system required to award ranked flares and to persist them. So I think I mentioned this on stream last week. The way that we're doing ranked flares is with the tier system is that you have to earn lower tier flares before you can earn higher tier flares. And then when you earn a flare, you are only earning it for that duration of the season that you earned it in. The goal of that is to make sure we don't have a recreation of the axe issue where a player in 15 earns an axe, and now in 2025 they are no longer an axe quality player, and they still have that flare. It kind of diminishes the value of that flare. So what we're doing is season by season, earning a rank, you have to re-earn that rank to prove that you still belong there, and then you can still represent the flare for that rank. And it's not going to be just that one season though. If you finish a season by meeting the activity requirements, which we're setting at 15 games per week, you will also keep that ranked flare for the entirety of the next season, even if you don't re-achieve that rank in the next season. So it'll be this season plus the next one. Every time you get to that rank, you keep that flare, and you can continue to use it as you go. So the system for locking those flares for the next season, removing them for players who did not earn it, that all went in about 2 hours after our stream last week. I started working on that pretty much right away. And let's see what else happened here. So there were some front end changes in that as well. Then I switched over to the tier recalculation, kind of getting that into a spot. So a lot of these things I've said before. What happens with that is I get the initial branch in, or somebody else gets the initial branch in, it gets ready to go, and then we need to make sure it's actually fitting in with the other pieces, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago. So a lot of what you're going to hear is the same stuff again, but it was just like moving it towards actually combining it with the rest of the code in the code base. So tier recalculations, making sure we have the correct number of tiers for each game mode, for each region, so that active players are actually representing those tiers and not inactive players, so that the number of games being created is consistent across all levels of play, instead of really clustering toward the top or toward the bottom, depending on where the active players are. Then we've got our review submitted on that. What am I reading here? Oh, it was a conversation. That's what I'm reading a comment on my own pull request, and I was like, why would I be critiquing my own code instead of just fixing it? But I was responding to somebody else who was trying to fix something I had done. So a lot of back and forth on the tier recalculations, making sure that it actually works when we do it, because we had some issues with current code for season 0 has a certain structure. The new code for season 1 has a slightly different structure. They each worked on their own. They weren't working together, so there was just a little bit of a back and forth to make sure that everything that we have for season 0 is not erased when we go ahead and start season 1. So that was good. And just making sure it's efficient. It was taking like a minute to run, so we kind of cut that down so it was a little quicker in the morning. Then we had some timing issues with the resets, because time zones are a bit of an issue with this. You think about, when do you want to actually recalculate daily? Loving the glasses, well, thank you, Timmy. When do you want to actually recalculate the number of tiers? So usually we have our resets at 4 a.m. because that's the time of day that nobody is playing the game. But you want to make sure that's consistent across all regions, because 4 a.m. for us might be 10 a.m. in Europe or something like that. So if we get active regions elsewhere, you don't want to have server resets or tier recalculations in the middle of active playing. So we're just making sure that the resets are happening at the quiet hour for every region, and that should reduce the ability for us to mess things up while that's happening. So a lot of back and forth there. I'm just scrolling through it real quick. And also making sure that our cache persists, C-A-C-H-E, because the joiner needs to know at all times how many tiers there are. But if you have back-end processes and front-end processes, I'm not going to go into details there. If you're resetting the back-end one, but you don't tell the front-end one, it'll have old data basically, and things will look wrong on the site. So just making sure that those are talking to each other appropriately. We finally got a review in for the redirect handling. I think I've mentioned that 3 or 4 times by now. Making sure that at the end of the game, you actually go where you thought you were going to go, including when you are playing the game, when you are spectating the game, when you have a void, when you have basically anything, private games, anything that when a game ends, you expect to go a certain place. We rebuilt how all of that works to make sure that it's working in all situations, because it's not doing that right now on the site. So that's actually done, merged, good to go forever. Assuming it doesn't break in testing. A lot of back and forth on the tiers. Skill resets. So this one was new from last week. So we've mentioned in the past that we want to do a soft reset on player ranked skills between seasons for two reasons. Right now, if you look at the leaderboard, you've got runaway skill score at the top end. I think everyone is aware of that. I'll just pull up a leaderboard to show you real quick. At the very, very top, you've got players who are way up in the 1600s, and then a very large gap down to the average of the rest of the community. So these numbers are way inflated from where they should be, in part because of not a bug necessarily, but a poor implementation of skill score bonuses, where we added in a bonus if you performed well in that game, but we weren't standardizing that with the other players on your team. So it was just adding score into the system, so it ballooned based on the number of games played. And so to fix this and to make sure even in the future if it happens again, which it shouldn't, we are resetting skill scores back toward the middle, but not resetting them completely. So you're not going to start off at the exact same place as the last ranked player. If you are the first ranked player, you're going to start closer to the middle. So we're just pulling the boundaries in basically. And there were some slightly complicated calculations going on with that, but basically we set boundaries first, pull everybody down to those boundaries. So you have a lot of players at the top boundary, a bunch of players at the bottom boundary, and then a little bit of a curve in between the two. And then using those bounded numbers, we calculate the mean, the standard deviation, all the stats that you would want to use. I don't have the exact thing in front of me, but basically trying to crunch everybody back together even inside of that distribution. So you keep the order that you're in, but if you're in the top like 75 or something like that, you would start at the same place as everybody else in the top 75. So the boundaries are all crunched down to one spot, and then that one spot is ahead of everybody else, even when we spread out everybody else around the average of the whole community. So it's just pulling people back in. They can have that same chase again to the top when they start playing again in the next season, but they won't be starting behind players who were way below them but happened to get a game in first, for example. So I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. It was a bit of a complicated way to do it, but I think it's going to work pretty well. We'll see how it actually ends up in practice. We did test this on a snapshot of the production database, so we know it's not going to explode, which is a good thing. So we'll take that for now, and we will see what happens in season 1. So another branch came in related to timing of leaderboard updates. Everything in front of me right now, we were having a bunch of issues with a game finishing, and maybe your number here didn't reflect the game that had just happened, or maybe it looked like it went down for some reason. There was a little bit of an issue for a couple different reasons for that one. So we've brought all those together, fixed them, and they are, as far as I can tell, working on our side of things. That also was related to the when do you reset things issue. So those were kind of talking to each other, and that's all good to go. We had a new branch that I haven't mentioned before related to rolling bombs. This is a groups only setting that we are adding for adjusting the radius of a rolling bomb explosion. So how far away you have to be impacted by that explosion, and also the power of a rolling bomb explosion. So you can modify those all the way down to 50%, all the way up to, I believe, 200%. Groups only for now. It might be something that we play around with for the actual game if there's a really strong consensus on what's better or not. Right now, it's just kind of fun because you can put it at 200 and stand next to somebody and just launch them across the map. And it's fun to mess around with. I'm not sure where we're going to go with it, but it's a nice option to have. I think that was requested by the Gravity community, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Tier notifications. We ended up changing the implementation for this. So right now, there's nothing like that at all, because when tiers expand, they never go back. But I've mentioned on stream a couple of times that, hey, look at that. When you queue for ranked, we want to have dynamic tiers. So if you have a lot of players, you'll expand, have more tiers up to 8. If players stop playing and you don't have enough to justify 8 tiers, it will contract back down to a smaller number of tiers. We added a notification system to that where it will tell you when you get to this page that there is going to be an expansion, what the region is going to be, and when it's going to happen. We had a lot of back and forth on how really to display that, because initially we had it as a click handler. So you click on the ranked button, and instead of taking you into the ranked joiner, it has a pop-up that says, hey, there's a tier expansion scheduled. The implementation, it was okay, like it worked, but it wasn't great, and it was kind of annoying in truth. And we had a couple ways of solving that, like only show it once, or maybe you have it once per region, and we just couldn't really figure out the best way to do that with the way we were handling it. So we scrapped that approach entirely. It's just going to show you a little button right here at the bottom that says expansion scheduled. If you click on that, it will show you what tiers are planning to expand and when. But if you don't click on that, you can just skip right past it and go into the ranked joiner as you would expect to. So that is done and ready to go. Then we've got a review on the rolling bomb thing that got merged in. We had a bug that we found from something else that was merged in related to the redirect handling again, making sure that if you are spectating a game and the game that you are watching ends unexpectedly, you still end up back in the joiner in the correct queue that you were in before you joined that game. Then we've got back and forth there. Skill compression, just talked about that. We had to make sure we had a ticket for that so that it could be added to the release notes. Oh, then Halloween. Yeah, so this is still about 6 days ago now. I looked at the timeline that we were on. I had promised, or I had hoped that we would have the release out before Halloween so that we could then get the events up and running and then put them on the production servers. Wasn't going to happen just because of that big branch that's holding things up. We weren't going to be able to get the release out before Halloween, so I made the call, put everything on hold for a day, get the Halloween event up and running, make sure it's working properly, test it. Ended up taking us about 2 days to get it going, but as you can see on the subreddit, we got that up. Jimmy is in town. There was a bug. I don't know if anyone saw this on the release notes or on the announcement post. I want to play this recording real quick. We put the event up at like 8 a.m. and I think the first game happened at 9 or so. And somebody sent us this recording of Jimmy just going straight over a player and not actually popping them, which was not what's supposed to happen, obviously. Let's watch Goblin here. And Jimmy just goes right over him. Just doesn't pop him. So we had a good laugh about that. We ended up tracing it back to the ghost mode settings, where if you were not aware, in the ghost mode settings, you can also modify the ability to interact with Mars balls. So you have no Mars ball collisions. For those who did not know, Jimmy on the back end is similar to a Mars ball. Obviously, it's the same shape. So when we had this added, there was a check that was failing for the event only, the event Mars ball, if you will, where it wasn't registering collisions. So we fixed all of that up. This is something to do with old event files being brought back that didn't have these considerations. We were just initializing things and in the wrong order. It took us about an hour and a half to track it down, but we got it fixed, and now it should be good for all events going forward. But it was a good laugh when we saw that, so I figured I'd put it in the announcement. He took him a few attempts to get back into form, but yeah, all good to go on that front. Is certainty reset as well, says G-Man? Yes, that's a good question. We are completely resetting the certainty value between seasons. So what I was talking about with the compression, that is your skill score, your MU on the back end. So that's being compressed down to the middle, but your certainty, your sigma, is completely set to what it would be if you were starting for the first time. So that allows players to move a lot more early on because the game's not sure how good they are. And as you get more games played, that certainty gets low, or I forget if it goes up or down on the actual calculation, but the game becomes more certain in the score that it's given you, and you don't move as much for the games that you play. So yes, certainty is reset as well between seasons. Good question. Back to development stuff. We've got Halloween up and running. We've got more changes to that big branch related to displaying active games in the joiner, so that you can pick the one that you want. You can see which game is close to ending. You can see the tiers of players to know if you're going to be getting a game soon. A lot of things are in this branch that I really want to have in this release, so just a lot more back and forth on that. And then we've got another new setting for groups only. This is a no boost setting. For those of you not aware, a boost is a portal boost and/or a player pop boost. So if you are next to a player and that player pops, you'll notice you move away from them a little bit. That is a boost. If somebody comes out of a portal, it knocks you away a little bit. That is also considered a boost. So there's a setting to disable boosts in private groups coming up, also requested by the Gravity community in combination with the Ghost mode, because what they like to do is have an obstacle course of sorts, and they want to navigate through it, but you have to wait for the person in front of you to go through a certain section so that you don't bump into each other and both pop. So that ghost mode setting went in to fix that, and then they realized that even though they're not bumping into each other, if you hit a spike and that boost goes off, it knocks you into a spike too. It's just the same thing as having to wait, even though you're not bumping into them as often. So the disabling boost should allow them to do all of that at the same time, but not get in each other's way as they play. So that should be in and good to go for the next release. We've got a bunch of work that I was working on, that I was doing with the flares and displaying the flares. So we've got the ranked tab obviously right now. You can see a bunch of question marks, so we're making sure that we have the right flares in here. I spent a lot of time on this flare to make it pretty, and I hope it doesn't suck. We'll find out. But just making sure that in all the places you would need to see that there is a flare, you can see it. Like on the profile, you want to see all the different ranked flares here, obviously. Making sure that there's the correct pop-up after a game ends that this player earned that flare. Same chat messages in game to say you earned the flare. So it's all the work related to earning a flare, which is more than you would think and more than I wanted it to be. But that's all in, waiting for the big branch before it can get merged down into the actual code. So that was something else I was working on. Then we've got a quick discussion on the boosts, because we almost put in a change that the way boosts are calculated is weird. It's actually calculated as an explosion on the back end, which is not relevant for anything, but there was a mistake in the way it was built initially, where we were going to decrease the strength of portal boosts in public games by a factor of 5% unintentionally. So we caught that to make sure that it doesn't happen, and it's good to go now. Then we've got finalizing the locking of flares that I already talked about. A lot of stuff this week. Okay, back to the big one. Yeah, so we found a pretty large issue with something called direct spectating. So I've talked a couple times on stream about how we're adding the spectate button in down here. So you can click that, you can see all the active games, and you can pick a game that you want to watch. We had tested it and it was working fine, but the way that we were directing players into a game was not quite good enough for the way that we want to do this. So we've had a little bit of a back and forth. I think we're just going to combine that process with a different way of sending players to a game. It's not really relevant for this, but basically we had a bunch of back and forth on how do we do this properly. We're going to do it the way that we decided on, and then we should be good to go for that. That's just a lot of back and forth. I can't really talk through what it is because it's really technical stuff in terms of like getting and fetching URLs and game servers, and it's an annoying thing to work on. This is the moral of the story, but we're getting close. I really want to have it done by next week. Another stream spammer, thank you. Okay, so that was the development stuff. There was some other behind the scenes work on the Season 0 flare. We have picked and we have built, by we I mean Glass Marble, shout out to that guy, a flare for Season 0. So at the end of each season, if you met the activity requirements for that season, which is 15 games per week for the duration of the season, you will earn a permanent flare for that season. It's not wins based, it's just games based, 15 games per week, and you will earn that flare forever. So we finished the flare for Season 0. We don't have a Season 1 flare yet, but we have all of Season 1 to figure out what it's going to be, and then we'll make a better schedule going forward for that. So there's a little bit of back and forth there, and then the other thing that I was working on was the actual release notes, which now that we've gotten all the branches in for the release, I actually was able to write what is in this release. So it's a four-page document right now, which is the largest release we have ever had for the game. That was not the plan when we started this. This was supposed to be a quick release, but as you'll see when it goes live, there's a laundry list of bug fixes that needed to go in related to the ranked matchmaking joiner. And I've talked about those on stream a little bit in the past, but every time we have to fix something, we are not working on new stuff, but we're also allowing more time to work on new stuff for the developers who are not focused on the fix. So while all these fixes were happening, other stuff was going on at the same time, and now there's just so much stuff that's been added in the process that this release, I think we're up to 56 different tickets now that were closed by this release. It's a ridiculous number of things, and I really want to get them live so you all can actually enjoy them, but we're close. So that is that. I thought there was one other thing we talked about, but I can't remember what it would be. Shoot. No, I guess that's it. Yeah, that's going to be it. So that's our development updates. Let's move on now, unless anybody has any questions about any of that. And like I said before, there is a form link in the chat here, and I'll also make sure I send that on the Reddit post and on the stream recording in the YouTube comments section. You can take a look. Feel free to submit that form. Any questions that form gets, I will answer on stream. But moving on to the candy board, we had a few things come in this week. I wanted to start with this add mini games to maps tab. So I responded to this last week, where we're going to add in mini games onto the maps page. But I did forget to mention this, and it occurred to me when they commented on my Reddit post last week, was we do actually have a rundown of all the mini games in the last release. So the last release right here, we put a full breakdown of the minigame rotation. This has not changed to now. So if you do want to know what the minigames are and what their settings are, you can check this post out. If you don't know where to find that post, you can always go to the feedback tab, release notes, view the full release notes. And the most recent one is the one that had this. If it's been a while since this recording, you can also see all past release notes, and it was number 34 with the minigame updates that you can take a look at. So I'm just going to add this into the comments here just so they know where to go if they wanted to. See this? Oh, I can just comment. Okay. That's ugly. Can I do hyperlinks? Ah, files. No, that's not what I want. All right. All mini games can be viewed here. As of this comment, the list has not changed. That's an ugly link. Can I get a shorter link? If I just cut that out, does it work? Sometimes that works. Let's see. Ha, it does. Nice. Okay. So I'll submit that. I mean spam. I run the site. What do you mean spam? What a stupid system. How can an admin get blocked? Oh my gosh, that's so dumb. All right. Anyway, that's up there. Let's move on to some new stuff. Starting with system message in chat for when players join ranked. When most players say ranked when they're about to switch out, there should be a system message. It should also mention the number of seconds until switch, maybe a timer. So a two-part answer to this. One is that the switching or the leaving for ranked is not working as intended. I think I've talked about that a couple times on stream. It's supposed to remove a player while they are respawning when there is a substitute ready. So it should be a pretty seamless transition. Instead of right now, what's happening is it's waiting the full 60 seconds and then kicking you out. That is fixed in the next release, but specific to this notification thing, we do actually have a request already for something similar. And we built a ticket for this a couple weeks ago. Let me pull up that ticket if I can find it real quick. Which is, we wanted to mark for teammates only when your teammate is about to leave for a ranked game. So you can see, oh, this player is marked for ranked. So I know not to like anticipate if they're on regrab, for example, like I can hedge toward that. I'm trying to figure out what it would have been called. I might go through our tickets real quick and see if I can find it, because I think I'm going to merge this one in with the other. Shoot, what was the name of that? Loading screen, rank button. There we go. Mark ranked players ready Yes. Okay, in-game rank queue denotation. Denotation is going to be the word that pops up. Yep. All right, so this one right here. Create a way in casual games to denote which players are in queue for ranked games so that players that choose to play casual will know which players are in danger of dropping if the ranked match launches. So we modified that slightly. We said that due to timing issues, occasionally pull players out mid-game instead of all respawning. It would be helpful for teammates to know that they are about to have someone quit their game. Like if someone's on regrab and quits, that is bad, obviously. So similar to the AFK indicator, we're going to put a stopwatch or something similar next to the name to show they're about to be pulled out into a ranked game, but it should only be visible to teammates, not to the enemy team, because we don't want the other team banking on somebody getting removed from the game. We just want their teammates to be able to handle that information. So, whoops. Let me merge this into, whoops, I've lost my, merge this into this one here. If I could spell, that would be fantastic. So merge that in, and that should be fully automated. All right, don't spectate mini games. I've been put in spectator many times in mini games with a few players playing. Why would I want to spectate that? Why not let me join? A couple answers to this. Why would I want to spectate that? I don't know. Maybe you do. I'm not here to make that decision for you. In the next release, obviously, I've talked about it. We have the the spectate selector. So you can pick whatever game you want to spectate, whatever that is. Some people might want to spectate minigames. Some people might never want to spectate minigames. You can make that choice yourself in the next release. Why not just let me join? That one's a very different thing, because why not let me join means that you don't understand that you can join these if you want to. So if you are queued for casual, there is a button on the bottom left corner that says minigames while you wait. If you don't check that button, it's never going to put you into a minigame. Also, if the minigame you're watching is not in the same region that you have selected, it's not going to put you into that minigame. If you are queued for US East and you are spectating a minigame on US West, even if you have minigame selected, it's not going to put you into that US West game. So if you want to join the game, press escape, look at the scoreboard, see what server it's on, select that region if you want to be added to that game. You might not notice that you're in a different region because we've added a 10-second delay on spectators. So even if you're watching something in Australia and you're in the North American continent, you're not going to see any lag or anything because you're getting the packet stream as if it was local to you. So check the scoreboard, make sure it's actually your region. If you are watching a game in your region and you have spectate selected, and and you have minigame selected, and that's not putting you in, let me know, because that's a bug. But I don't think we have that issue right now. So let me summarize why I'm closing this. Oh, is this in progress or is it closed? I think it's we have enough tickets for the direct spectate. I'm just going to close it. Direct spectate is on the way in the next release, allowing users to pick which game they want to spectate while waiting for their own game. If you are spectating a minigame and not joining it, you either do not have minigames selected or do not have the region of that game selected. Check the scoreboard of the game to see the server and modify your selections if you would like to join. All right. Agreed, there's no point spectating minigames. They're just waiting rooms. I mean, that's your opinion, man. I like to watch sometimes. A list of active games, that's in progress. Pick games to spectate, probably not practical. Well, actually, it's very practical. And it is on the way now. So, all spectating, I'm going to respond to this as well. All spectating now comes with a 10-second delay. So there is no advantage gained by watching while waiting, or while playing, I guess. Okay. Good questions, though. Good prompts. Let's keep moving. Play private games while waiting for a ranked match. Now, that's an interesting suggestion. I want to practice boost roots while waiting for a ranked match. So, I'm not against this. It is slightly more complicated because the way that private games work revolves around your group that you're in and the group ID that you have assigned to yourself. If you tried to do that while you were playing public games, it would completely fall apart right now. Oh, it's bright. Fred is wearing sunglasses. So I'm not sure how we would go about this in truth. I feel like there's definitely a way to do it. So that's going to be an under review. Will require discussion with the development team for implementation. Should be possible, but would create many conflicts in the joiner right now. Okay, we need a run it back button, same teams one more time. I've seen this suggestion a lot. I don't hate the premise. I just don't know if there's really a good way to do this, because when you have a small community like we do, and you give players the ability to skip the joiner and get right back into a game, yes, it's fun for the players in that game, but you're also saying, okay, anybody who wasn't in that game, sorry, you're waiting for a whole new game to finish. So it's not, I don't know, you need to have a certain number of games going before this can be viable. And I don't think that we have the ability to do that right now, because you'd have to have like a conditional, like, hey, run it back, but it's not actually allowed right now because we only have 20 players online. So you'd need, like, you need the joiner to give you permission basically to redo the game. I don't want to close it because I don't dislike the idea, but there's no real way to do this well. Idea is not outright opposed, but with the current status of the player base, restarting a game is equivalent to skipping all players who were not in that game. This would be a net negative for player experience until there are enough concurrent games in a given region. So, not a bad idea, just don't think we have the way to do that right now. The racing map with spikes everywhere is a dope idea. Can we get lap times to compare? Thanks. Would be cool if we scored on lap times, and that would have more weight, more maps and gamies like this. I think you'll be surprised with how many more will be online. I appreciate the enthusiasm. This is similar to a ticket we worked on a couple of weeks ago, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago actually, with time trials, I believe, or a leaderboard for racing maps and gravity maps. What do we call that? It was something to do with time trials or time racing. Because I remember gravity was a part of it too. Time trial leaderboards, maybe. Yeah, this is what it was. Okay, so I have this document that we worked on stream probably like a month ago now, where you would have a bunch of different maps to pick from, and you could race to complete them in a certain amount of time. You would have flares available on the leaderboard for players who were in the top like 5 or so finishers, and then you would have like standards to meet based on other finishing times. It's a pretty cool feature. I think this is related to that. Let me see if I can find a ticket to merge this into. Because I think if we had the minigame rotation also eligible to play in those games, that seems perfectly reasonable to me. It's something to play for while you wait. It's in the joiner. It works seamlessly with everything else. So I like that idea. What am I looking for? Where's the... I just had it open. What did I just do? I could have sworn there was a candy board ticket for this. Here it is. Global leaderboard for racing times. There were 2 tickets actually. I think I merged one into the other. Yeah, so I'm going to merge this into the same one. So there's a ticket. It's called Global Leaderboard for Racing Times, which is add a leaderboard listing the fastest lap times for official racing maps. I think Rainbow Road is one of the official racing maps. That's the map that they are talking about in the initial post. So let us mark this as planned because it's not for some reason. Oh, no, it is planned. Did I just click on the same thing again? Whatever, it's planned. So let's add this in to that ticket because it is a cool idea and I would like to have that happen. So that's merged in, excellent. And that brings us to the end of our candy board posts for this week. So thank you everybody for submitting those. Always appreciate the ideas that come in from that. And I think that we can move on now to our feature building portion. So we're about 40 minutes in. I'm a little strapped for time today, so we're not going to go too long into this, but I was having a discussion with a player recently about TagPro regions and what would need to go into adding new regions to the game. And this isn't a short-term thing, this is more of a longer-term thing to work on, but I wanted to kind of play through what would need to happen to get TagPro added into, for example, like a Southeast Asia server, or that's probably the biggest one. This was a player from the Australian Oceanic community. So would there be the ability to get that up and running, and then what needs to go into it? So we're going to start with infrastructure stuff, just to make sure we have actual servers in those locations. For those who don't know what TagPro runs on, we use Linode, which is owned by Akamai now, to run all of our servers. That is in comparison to like Amazon Web Services that we don't use. We used to be running on Vultr in the past. We tested it. Amazon wasn't great for us. We also tested Google Cloud, I think it was, or what's the name? Google, they have an actual name for it. It's Google stuff though, it doesn't matter. And then we tested DigitalOcean, I believe, was the other host that we had tried. Linode Akamai ended up being the best one for us. Pricing was pretty good, but the biggest thing that we get for it, and server stability good, but the routing is the big thing. So getting to a server is as important, if not more important, than the quality of the server that you're getting to, because if you are connecting to a server but your connection is garbage, you're going to feel like you're playing on a garbage server. So you're only as good as your connection to that server is. The benefit of a larger company like Linode Akamai is that they have a bit more reach, if you will, for getting to their server. So they have actual pipelines from major areas around their servers that you can get plugged into, and it brings you directly to that server instead of taking some circuitous route. So I want to look into locations for Linode Akamai servers. Let me see if I can find this real quick. And if anyone out there is watching this and like, oh, I actually have a lot of experience in servers and whatnot, please message me, because it took us a lot of time to land on this provider, and I've been pretty happy with it. You remember back in the Dallas days how much of an issue servers were and how many complaints we would get about server quality and lag and all that. I think Mudfish has been a big part of that as well. Mudfish, for those who don't know, is just a product that allows you to fine tune and/or directly modify your routing between yourself and a destination. The destination in this case would be a TagPro server, but you can make sure that you're skipping over bad nodes between you and the actual server. If there's one particular location that's causing a lot of lag for you, you can skip it entirely. So I think the combination of the Akamai network that we have and Mudfish for a lot of players was able to fix most lag issues that I've heard of. Occasionally things still happen, obviously, but I think I've found what I was looking for here. Let's see. Are these server locations or are these, what am I looking at? Region availability. This doesn't seem right. These aren't the locations that we, oh, Chicago, is it? I'm drawing a blank now. No, we have Atlanta, we have Chicago. I think we have, are we in Newark maybe? Toronto. This feels right. Yeah, I think this is right. So what do we have in Europe? We've got, I think we have an Amsterdam server and a London server, if I'm not mistaken. I guess I can check this in the group. We've got Amsterdam and London, yeah. So what do we have outside of that? So I think we're good on Europe servers. What do we have in Sydney? Yes. And so I think the question is, do we have any locations in Asia that would be viable? And so the servers are just one small piece of the puzzle here. The bigger issue that we're going to have to talk through is language, essentially. So right now the whole site is in English. Our entire development team runs English. Moderation teams are in English. The chat sanitation that we use, the filters are all built around English. If you introduce the game in a region where English is not the primary language, what considerations do you have with that? So let's worry about the server thing first. Let me just pull up my map real quick and see what we got here. Major cities, just for location purposes. I don't know how this map. This is such a bad way of doing this. Okay, we've got a map. Let's see what we got. So we have servers over here. We have a server down here. Singapore is down there. That's actually not a bad location because that would be a nice intermediate between your Australian server and a new population of players. So Singapore seems like a pretty easy starting point. We used to have a Brazil server. Did we really? When was that? That'd be early days, right? Do we still have the ability to do a Brazil server? South America? I guess we do. Sao Paulo. Now I know. 11 years ago. Jeez. Okay. Well, we no longer have a Brazil server. Sorry about that. Anybody who was hoping to play down there. That could change if we go down this route, because it's not like we only can do an Asia server. But how is neutral flag ranked going to work? Separate leaderboard with a separate season? It's going to be the same season number, so it'll still be season 1 when we add neutral flag, but it will be a separate leaderboard, separate skill score, separate everything from capture the flag. So we have Osaka. I don't see it over there, but it's over there. Tokyo, that one we have. Okay. Chennai. Okay, so this would be more if we're trying to bridge between Europe. I guess that's still pretty far away, though. I don't think that would be a good experience for players in Europe. And it's not that we're doing this for players in Europe or for players in Oceania, but the ability to mix is a little bit better. Just thinking about how Europe is pretty static right now. There's a pretty small player base, but it has some player base because they were able to dip in to US East. So you want some playability overlap if possible, because regions can prop each other up, kind of is the idea behind that. Mumbai is closer to Europe, so that's not a terrible alternative. And then Jakarta. I am not good at GeoGuessr. Where's Jakarta? ID. I should know where that is. South? South like south here or south like south here? Oh, it's right there. Duh. Okay. Oh, ID Indonesia. Okay, maybe. Don't quote me on that. So yeah, Singapore, Jakarta, one of those would probably make sense. So you could probably do like a Mumbai and a Jakarta, and I feel like you would get a pretty good spread between most of Asia, most of Southeast Asia, and then have a little bit of a dip into Australia and a little bit of a dip into Europe, and obviously everything in between. So that, I think if we were going to add servers here, those are the two that would make the most sense to me. Japan, kind of out of the way. Like you don't have, like you're not going to get a situation where US West players are playing on Japan or vice versa. It's just not feasible. Like the Atlantic is small enough that you can get away with it, but the Pacific is, for those who don't know, a pretty big ocean. So it's just not super viable to go that way. So I think I would lean towards Mumbai and Jakarta right now. But the Siberian player base, yeah. So okay, well that's good to know. Then Brazil, I'm kind of curious, where is this in relative to? It is southern Brazil. It's down there. Okay, well, that'd be good. If we're gonna have a South America server, that's probably a good place to do it, which is probably why they have a server there. They probably have more stats on that than I would ever hope to have. Okay, so that's a good thing to have in our back pocket there. Now, I'm not going to type this up because I just want to kind of have a conversation about it, but when it comes to moderation and handling chat, you need to have a plan before you do something like this, because if it gets away from you, it can turn into a bit of a mess. I don't think it's realistic to say that we should have moderators who are proficient in a certain language. That's just not a thing that we have the ability to do. Like we're a small mod team as it is. Once you get things up and running, you have a lot of ability to have monitors added to the team who are proficient in a given language. But the other problem we have was the chat filter. And I'm worried because even now we will have issues where somebody will say something in Spanish, for example, and it's a completely benign thing in Spanish, but the orientation of the letters catches on those regular expressions and it thinks that it's a bad word, even though it's very much not a bad word with the obvious context of the language that it's spoken in. So I think we would need to go down the route of having, and I don't like saying, you need to have region-specific filtering of words, which would again require some proficiency in the language. And then I'm also thinking about different characters. Like I don't know if lucky is the right word, but I am lucky as a moderator for English not having a whole lot of extra characters. Like all the letters are just letters. Like there's no E with an apostrophe over, or with a accent mark over the E. Like it's just an E. So it doesn't change. Like so I just feel like we'd have to have people who actually know how the language works to really go down that route, which worries me, because if you want to start small, you don't have those resources at the very start. So the other option that we have, and I'm not necessarily pushing for this, is to remove chat entirely in these regions until we can get a certain player base size up and running to the point that it can actually be moderated. And that would allow the game to exist there, and hopefully players enjoy the game without just typing all the time, which might be a weird thing to say for TagPro players, but I think it would at least allow you to have the game exist there and play the game, and then if you have the option to add chat in the future, that could work. You could also do something like a preset macros system for the early regions, or you could do like a React kind of thing. You have other options that aren't just open chat as opposed to no chat. I think we'd probably need to, you need to have some way of communicating, because the whole reason players were drawn to this game early on, yes, it's a silly ball game, but the ability to build a community within the game was a big deal early on. And I'd be worried if we remove the ability to chat entirely in a region, we're kind of just stifling that from the get-go, which feels counterintuitive. So just trying to think about like how do other games do this? Like Rocket League's a good example of a game that exists outside of North America. I assume, right? Actually, I didn't check that. Let me check that. Rocket League has to exist outside of North America, right? Magnus today. Yeah, this is my Halloween costume fly. It's Camp Crystal Lake, and it's got all that stuff. So I figured I'd put the sunglasses and the hat on. I had a whistle. I can't find the whistle, but my Balanka's. I don't think so. I think Balanka's cooler than I am. But we're talking about region expansions and what we would have to do to get game up and running in other locations. So we're looking at server locations. We figured out that Jakarta and Mumbai are the two best options we have for our Linode/Akamai. There's also a South American Sao Paulo server. So those would be where we would add it. So now we're talking about how does chat work? How do you moderate chat? Do you have chat? In those regions where it's non-English, you have to have a different chat filter if you're going to do that. And we're just kind of talking through the options that we have on that front. So if you have any thoughts on that, please share. But I think what I lean toward right now is some sort of modified chat system where it's not just open chat, but you have like you can choose from pay people to play. That wasn't really what I was going for. But I guess we could explore that too if we wanted to. I think some kind of modified chat where you have like a preset number of things you can say in the early days. And then if you get to a point where there are some regulars who would be playing games, now you can help them join the monitor team and they can be the ones who are moderating things. Because I don't want to be the white guy sitting in Boston moderating chat in a completely different language in Asia. That's just not my thing. Like I don't know the language. I don't know what these words mean. Like even a good example in Europe, there's a certain word that in English is a nothing word, and I don't know if I can say that. It's like CANCKER. It means like cancer essentially, but the way the word carries in that region, it's a much worse insult than it would be in English. So it's like little cultural regional things like that where I'd be afraid that I don't understand the context of these things, and we're gonna either miss big things or we're gonna over moderate things that do not matter. Starts talking in Italian. Yeah, I mean we do have that problem though, is what I'm saying. So we like sometimes people will start talking in Polish, for example, and they'll get caught by the chat filter because the filter is set up for English. And so we have this problem already to a lesser degree. I think in Europe especially, most people who find this game do have some baseline English understanding. And I'm very much generalizing here. I know there are players who probably don't, but the chat that I see more often than not in these European regions is still English. So it's like, do we have that same ability to just have English in other servers? I know English is spoken in other countries too. It's not like people in India or Indonesia don't know English, but it's not like everybody who speaks it like you would in North America, obviously. So I'm just a little hesitant to just go for it. I don't know. Remove their chat ability entirely and only give them chat macros, says Fly. Yeah. So I think that's the easiest option, and you'd have to translate those, but at least we could translate those ahead of time and you know that they're like useful things to be saying. I think I'd be a little confused about how do you translate words like regrab, because it's not a real word. Like it's a thing that we made up. Well, I guess you'd have to take the word grab the flag, and you'd take the word grab, and then you would just say do it, grab again kind of thing. So it might sound completely different. It might be a different word, but it would functionally mean grab again. And that would like, I feel like an idiot talking about this. Like I need somebody who actually speaks another language to help me with this. How would you even choose? Yeah. For the dialects, it's just like there's so many peripheral considerations with this. I've got to go back to work. No worries. Thanks for stopping by. How much localization translators cost? Someone could get a corresponding word. Yeah, it's like, do we have the money to do that? Is it worth the money to do that? Then the other thing is, do you just wait a little bit longer for large language models to get to the point where they can translate real time, and then just spend some tokens on that and say, okay, pick your language and we'll just translate everybody else's chat for you kind of thing. Like, do we have that ability? I wouldn't want to do that myself, but if somebody else wanted to do the work on that, I don't have a problem with it. But I think the easiest option, if we could find a way to do some sort of symbols that's not even words, like you think about your this is a bad example, like your Clash Royale kind of thing, where you have like the emotes, but you don't have actual chat, it's just images expressing a certain opinion. It doesn't really work in a TagPro context because you need team building, you need like communicating with your teammates to do a certain thing. It's not just like taunting your opponent, which is more where that goes. But I don't know, it's a little tricky. A little tricky. Someone ironically brought those up in comp Discord lately, did they? I haven't been following too closely. I mean, it'd be funny. Like, it's not like it wouldn't be an enjoyable thing. It's just, if the goal of chat is to, so let's talk about that actually. What is the goal of chat? It's to encourage communication between teammates. Do you just wait until you have voice channels, but then you have unmoderated voice channels? That's even worse. So that doesn't work. Is it to help build a community? Because in that case, you'd need emotes that aren't taunting. You'd need them to be constructive. But you can also build a community by taunting people too. It's not like those are mutually exclusive. Like, there is some poking and prodding, even in like the North American community. So yeah, that's what I'm stuck on right now. Because I'm playing with a bunch of different versions of the same thoughts here. I don't want to keep repeating myself. Once you get like a core group of like 5 people who are willing and able to read and moderate chat, you can have open chat from then on. You just need to have that core group of people who understand why chat is being moderated, understand what the goals of chat moderation are, and then are willing to put the time in to actually enforce it. And you don't need 24/7 constant moderation. You can have mutes that come in after the fact. You can have warnings to tell people not to do that in the future. And then once you have like a certain core like words that are bad built up, you don't even need players who speak that language to be moderating it. Like, it's very easy for me. I've spoken to the moderators we had in Europe and from the Netherlands and talking about that word that I just mentioned a couple minutes ago. Now I know that if I see that word, that it shouldn't be allowed. So it's very straightforward to say, okay, I'm going to block that word. If somebody tries to get around the filter, I'll apply a mute for it. Like, I don't need to know that word, but I needed somebody who did know that word in the first place to get us set up to stop that word from being said in the future. So if we could have just that starting point, and then people who can interpret and stay on top of things as they change, because language obviously evolves in time, I think from there you're fine. So you just need to have that starting seed essentially, and I think you're okay after that. So my personal take on that, kind of a progression, how do you get from a starting point to an ending point, is that we have an ending point. We have a moderation team, we have a monitor team, and we have a chat filter that can work fine if we do it regionally. If we can just get that starting point of people who understand how the language works and what can and cannot be said, to foster a welcoming environment. That's the whole point of chat moderation. It's not just, oh, these words are bad and I'm applying my opinion on everybody else. It's that these are things that people deserve not to be called. And if we want people to come play the game, we should make sure that they're not being called these things when they come and play the game. So if we can get that list of things and just implement it, it's fine. So I think we would start with, all my ideas have sucked. Just make it a Wild West server. Bad. Can we do English or nothing? Bad. Yes, we can do both of those things, but we shouldn't do either of those things. I think even doing English only, though, you can't just do English only, because if you're allowing people to type, they're gonna type other languages. Like, it's a similar enough keyboard that we have people speaking Italian on our servers if they're playing from Italy. So it's not like we can force people to use English. If they're going to type on a keyboard, they're going to type whatever they type. We only have the ability to enforce characters, which is I'm not getting into that right now, but if you know what Unicode is, like you can't send emojis in chat. You can't send like those messed up letters that are like strings, like tall. Like, if you think about like the Jimmy Wise stuff on the subreddit, where it would be like "I'm coming for you" kind of thing, but the letters are all over the place, like that kind of stuff. You cannot send that in chat because we sanitize the chat. So we can do something like that where you don't allow certain characters from other languages, but we can't completely remove the ability to say things that use the English keyboard in other languages. So we can't really enforce English only. We just have to enforce chat or no chat or limited chat at the start. And it could be, actually, to Fly's point and a little bit to yours, Grant, that we have those preset sentences, but we only allow them in English. And then people get a feel for that. And then we get enough players playing who are saying, hey, can we just use our own language here? And that could be your starting seed to get to that final point that I was talking about. So maybe before you even try to introduce another language, you say, we're not allowing any chat except for these preset messages. Then once the game gets a foothold, then it's okay for us to start allowing chat with moderators keeping track of things that are going on. And that could work okay as a starting point without us having to go out of our way to prepare, I guess, all of these handling situations that we don't know yet. So, because that'd be super easy. Just say, okay, you're in this region, you can't chat, but here are your 10 macros to pick from that say the things that we think are important. Macro only chat is something that kind of fit into a version of the parental controls. I don't know if I agree with that. Because the parental controls was more of like an overbearing chat filter where it's removing even like swear words kind of thing. I think I may be missing your point. Having said that, people have wanted those presets anyways. Yeah, I mean, we can still offer these everywhere. You just only allow open chat in English-speaking regions until we have moderators who know other languages. Just as a separate feature that could go alongside, not inside of the parental controls. I got you. Okay. Well, that's a good starting point for that conversation. I'm curious to see if anyone has any other thoughts on this. I think I've laid out everything that my brain's able to come up with right now. But we get a lot more views on the recording. I think we had about 150 on last week's recording. So if you're one of those people, shoot me a message if you have questions about this. I want to hear from you and see what I'm missing and what we can do about this. So I am a little strapped for time today. I've got a bunch to go do, so I'm probably going to wrap up in a minute or so. I did get a question about the playlist that I use, which I don't know if you can see it on the corner there. It's not anything fancy. It's really just, it's called Streambeats-Lo-Fi Lo-Fi. Streambeats-Lo-Fi on Spotify. It's a free, copyright-free Twitch stream music thing. So whoever that was who was asking me about it, just check it out. You can use it, and it doesn't cost anything. So that is probably all that I've got for you guys this week. I'm gonna try to put together a recording after this, talking through the release notes, the more so the implications of the release notes, because it's such a long list of things that just looking at the list, yes, fine, but a lot of the things that we did, they require a little bit more explanation for the why and the how. So I want to give a better breakdown so that next week when I'm not able to stream next Friday, if you weren't here for that, I am not around next Friday. I will not be streaming, but I will try to get that YouTube video to premiere at 1:30 or 1 o'clock Eastern if the release is able to go live before next Friday, which again, I really, really want to happen. So that's all I got for you guys. Have a happy Halloween. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and I will see you in 2 weeks on Friday.